Hello and welcome to the Win Good Vibes Gaming's Nintendo podcast. I'm Brandon Miracle. I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by Steve Bowling and Daniel Alba. What's up, boys?
Hello.
Hello.
It's been a very non-Nintendo-y Game Awards.
Yeah, I mentioned it a little bit at the end of our kind of debrief after the show yesterday, but Nintendo was just kind of not there.
They showed up for some nominees. They had a couple of just shoehorned ads, and that's pretty much their whole presence. I think Doug Bowser was in the front, and that was all we saw of anyone Nintendo related.
That kind of ponies up today's main topic, which will be Nintendo 2024 in review. We don't really think much more will happen for Nintendo between now and the end of the year. The holidays are coming up. But before we get to that, there is one other piece of news we want to touch on. Last week, if you listened to The Win, Steve and I were talking about the various leaks, quote-unquote leaks, that were happening regarding Nintendo Switch 2. Not to beat a dead horse, but something a little bit more major happened just today as we're recording this, and that is that the CEO of Brand has confirmed that the render of the Switch 2 in their current it's a grip,
kill switch. Kill switch grip, yeah.
That render is the Switch 2. He just went up and said, "Yeah, that's it. That's the console." Last week's rumors were a little questionable. When you have the CEO of a company such as Brand, and Brand is not a small thing, that's pretty convincing.
Yeah. For some reference, if those of you out there listening don't watch tech YouTube, Brand sponsors massive channels. Specifically, they're really closely partnered with Linus Tech Tips. They have like loads and loads of subscribers. Putting an ad on that channel is not cheap, and they do it all the time. Brand also has a history of pissing off console manufacturers. They released dark plates for the PS5 and got straight up sued. So, back when the PS5 didn't have faceplates yet, Brand released like black faceplates that were an exact ripoff of what Sony was selling. They had to change them, but these guys are familiar with tangling with platform holders.
I'm pretty much inclined to believe what's being said is true, and it also lines up basically with everything else we've been seeing.
Yeah, the thing is here, like you mentioned, Brandon, Brand, they're in the business of making like skins and covers, and that extends into console accessories, right? Unofficial though they may be, but Brand is one of those companies that's placed in a position to have access to information like this because they probably have a lot of their stuff manufactured in the same facilities that Nintendo and other platform holders get their stuff made in, specifically referring to like overseas Chinese factories that assemble components for all kinds of stuff. The same people that assemble the Switch and presumably the Switch 2 also assemble the iPhone. It's kind of one big complex over there. So it's not unrealistic to think, somebody with millions and millions of dollars can get access to this information from somebody who works in the factory to use it to their advantage to have an unofficial Switch 2 accessory whenever that comes out. So yeah, and this is somebody placed high up enough to really, really have the means to get that info.
Yeah, and it just seems like this is something that probably I expected something like this to happen at some point, considering how long Nintendo has been holding on to this design, to this reveal of the Switch 2. The longer you wait for anyone to reveal this, the more opportunities there is for someone to leak it. And as we've seen leaks already, but it's going to take a moment, not too much longer now, really, to have it revealed. But you're going to definitely have somebody higher up of authority, as we are seeing now, tell you like, oh yeah, this is this is the official design. And I don't know what Nintendo was thinking. Like people were going to hold this down all the way up until they decided to announce it. But yeah, I'm just kind of I'm surprised, but it doesn't really. I guess I'm not as surprised as I thought it would be because it's just been so long since we've officially known that we're going to be hearing about the Switch. So.
We're kind of in unprecedented territory, though. Like, before the Switch came out or was revealed or whatever, we knew generally what the system was supposed to be, but we did not have this level of accurate detail. Mm-hmm. We just know what the Switch 2 looks like. Just full sale.
Yeah. Although I do want to play devil's advocate here, because obviously I do believe this one. I think this is accurate information. However, if you were the CEO of a company and you did reveal a Switch 2 accessory, there's also no way in hell that you say it could not look like this and you would be wasting your money buying our product that we've just announced. So, I mean, it behooves dbrand to say like, yeah, that's definitely the Switch 2. This will definitely work with it. You should buy it now for whenever Nintendo releases it. Because no company ever is going to say like, yeah, we're just guessing. Like we're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks and we hope to get your money. So while I do believe it to be true, I also, again, as I always say, until Nintendo announces anything, none of this is real. And you should definitely not buy this now. Like, don't buy this.
No.
Don't buy a Switch 2 case until Nintendo shows you what a Switch 2 is and tells you when you're going to get it.
Yeah, don't buy any accessories for a platform that does not officially exist yet. That's just not a smart business choice. But, we're getting ever closer to the inevitable day that Nintendo finally reveals the Nintendo Switch 2. It'll be very interesting when that day finally comes, if all these, designs that we've seen end up being accurate. At this point, I'd be shocked if they weren't. But I don't really know what I'd prefer at this point.
Yeah, because we know it's going to be fairly similar to the Switch 1's design. And so if it's anything, even if this isn't it, I'm certain it's like something accurate, at least somewhat, to the actual Switch 2 design.
Yeah, it feels like, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a whole lot of smoke these days. And it feels reminiscent in its own way of the early days of NX, pre-Switch reveal, like where we were seeing like these kind of drawings, like people were like, oh my God, it has detachable controllers and it'll have these features, except this time we're a much better informed user base, right? So we're like, oh, it'll be a Switch. Like we know what a Switch is now. We're like, it'll be a Switch with like magnetic Joy-Con and a bigger screen. Like, and it just feels like there's just enough info out there from reliable people and believable sources to kind of have a clearer picture of what to expect this time around. Like with the NX, it was all, people mocking up stuff that looked like the new 3DS and had all kinds of wild designs. And for a minute, there was just that oval with like 2 analog sticks on it. I think people have a clear expectation of what Nintendo's design language for this is. And I mean, confirmation of backwards compatibility with the original Switch means that certain things are definitely true of this console now. Like, you can't have something that's backwards compatible with Switch, but doesn't have Joy-Con support and doesn't dock and undock. Like, there's a lot of stuff there that has to be true for it to be compatible.
Yeah, I'm not too worried at this point about any of this stuff being fake necessarily. That said, we're at a point now where so many people are saying so many things that there could be a lot of parroting happening. But I'd be very wary to say that someone like the CEO of dbrand would just flippantly say something like this. That said, they are saying something that could just get them in trouble at the same time, and I don't understand the goal there so much.
Yeah, I mean, there's also kind of a sense though that pissing off platform holders engenders trust within the customer base, right? Like, you're saying something that people want to know about, people want to hear this, but but for whatever reason, Nintendo is unwilling to do yet. And I think that there's something about that makes certain people happy. Like, going back to the whole Dark Plates thing, I remember that lawsuit, and I remember Sony obviously being very mad at dbrand and dbrand using that to drum up support for themselves. Like, they were like, hey, we just want to give you options for your PS5 and Sony doesn't want you to have them. So here we are, good guy dbrand helping you out. And honestly, in the court of public opinion, it won them favor. And I could see that being a similar ploy here. Like, Nintendo doesn't want to show you the Switch 2, but we don't care. We will. So here's your first look. Sorry, Nintendo, sue us or something. Which they really will. You guys shouldn't have done that. They absolutely will if they can.
Dangerous move right now.
Yeah, that's after Pal World. I don't know that you want to really tempt Nintendo to go to court.
There's no lawyers I fear more than Nintendo lawyers. But I think that's enough Switch 2 for now. Like I said, anytime in the next couple months will be the day. Hopefully it's relatively soon so that we can stop rolling down this hill that never ends. But we're speaking of the end of the year, we're coming down to the end, and I wanted to talk about Nintendo's 2024 because I felt that this year was kind of an odd duck. And I'm curious what you think, Daniel.
Yeah, there was a lot more. I felt like there was a lot more of the main titles that we saw this year were remakes than anything. Like there were definitely some of your original titles that came out as well, but they weren't really of any particularly high caliber. They all felt like they were just a bit more in the background, not like the huge heavy hitters that we'd see for first parties. We got first party titles, but none of them really resonated in the ways that you would see at, for example, like Game Awards or anything. But yeah, I don't really think that it was a particularly active year. I don't think I really played my Switch a lot at all this year compared to other years. Just because, yeah, there were obviously there were things to play, and when I was playing them, I was playing them a lot. The one that I think resonated with me the most would be like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, which is a remake. But other than that, I can't really recall too many titles right now, other than like maybe Echoes of Wisdom that captured my attention for a long time this year in particular.
Yeah, I'm looking at this list of games that were released this year. In January, we had another Code Recollection, which I myself didn't play. I've never played the original games, but I know this is one that resonated with John specifically. Did either of you play it?
I played a bit of it, and it didn't really hit for me. I picked it up. I think I picked up every first-party Nintendo title this year. But it just didn't capture my interest. It's more of a slow-paced game, and that wasn't really what I was looking for around that point of the year. I mean, January, I was also playing Prince of Persia, which was giving me some major feel-good vibes, and this game got lost, due in no small part to that. I think that was my month.
Yeah, I played the demo, and it feels like something I would play and involve with more, especially when the other title is something that never actually released out here in other territories, which is something I want to experience at some points. But no, I haven't been able to fully get into it myself.
Yeah, that was released in January. Going into February, we've got Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which is a remake. It's not a especially inspired remake, if you ask me. It's very like New Super Mario Brothers in its aesthetic. It's just boilerplate Mario, which is fine. It's fine for something like this, but it does unfortunately lack some identity because of that.
Though, I'll go to bat for this one because I played this with my partner. She happened to be visiting when it came out, and we played some of it together, and then I just kind of held off on playing it again until I saw her again. Because at the time she was in the UK and I was here, and I had a lot of fun playing it multiplayer. I agree with your criticisms in that it's not a particularly inspired remake, kind of in the same way that oh gosh, what game am I thinking of now? It's the army game that I can't come up with the name. I'm just
Advance Wars.
Thank you. The Advance Wars remake was super kind of bland, and I can understand how one might view Mario versus Donkey Kong the same way, but I think it's kind of like a mindless game. It was at least a good time waster.
Yeah, it's a small time release, and I think you could say the same thing of the next two games on this list, which is Princess Peach Showtime in March from Goodfeel, and then Endless Ocean Luminous in May. I didn't particularly care for either of these games, if I'm going to be honest.
This wounded me because I was ready to have a lot of fun with Princess Peach Showtime, but it was the type of game that absolutely had to nail its performance, and it ran very poorly, like extremely poorly. Long load times, bad frame rate, poor visuals. Like it was the epitome of everything that can go wrong with a Switch game, particularly a first-party Switch game. So While I like the core of what's there in Princess Peach Showtime, the ideas presented in it, the execution, both on a technical and conceptual level, just needs a lot of work.
Yeah, I didn't really stick with that too long, but I enjoy what they have here. I mean, of course, it's so nice to see Princess Peach starring in her own game again, but it didn't really feel like something that was particularly memorable as far as what we could have had. I don't know. Um, I know Brandon has a lot of feelings about Super Princess Peach, but how is this game compared to that one, Brandon?
I would play this game any day over Super Princess Peach. But no, I agree with Steve. I think the performance issues in Princess Peach Showtime are pretty staggering. Those load times in particular really dissuade me from replaying stages, which is what you're supposed to do. The game encourages you to go back, so that you can collect all the, what is it, Sparklium? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it's frustrating when there's a game that wants you to play it repeatedly, but makes playing it repeatedly a nightmare.
Yeah, honestly, this is one of those, and we'll probably talk about this next week when we're looking forward to next year, but one of these games that might get a new lease on life if Switch 2 actually improves the performance of Switch 1 games.
Yeah, this would definitely be a game I'd be willing to revisit on Switch 2 if it gets that performance enhancement. As of right now, it's just not something I'm very interested in going back to.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we've got Endless Ocean Luminous, which came out in May. I've never played Endless Ocean before, but this is another one that I think resonates with John. Did either of you play this, and have you played the old ones?
I picked this up. I have not played it. I remember being a kid and playing Echo the Dolphin and just having this idea of like, what the hell do I do? Like, what is this game and what do I do in it? And Endless Ocean is basically that for me. Like, I like games to have like a really well-defined point to them. Otherwise, I just kind of struggle to maintain interest. And I totally see the appeal of a game to like chill out and vibe with, but for me, it's just I'd rather watch anime or do something. Like if I'm going to passively enjoy something, I'll watch something instead of play something.
Yeah, Endless Ocean is a series that I haven't really gotten into either. I mean, there were other games that were coming out around that time that I was prioritizing, and Endless Ocean was just not really one of them on top of that list. Sorry, John. But I've seen and experienced the ones from before this title, and it was just surprising that this came out at all. Like they had that really cool option to like explore the oceans with like 16 players or something crazy like that. And I wonder how many people actually made use of that option, because I don't know anyone that did.
John is probably the only person on planet Earth, plus 15 other people that he strong-armed into doing it. I'm just kidding. I see the appeal of Endless Ocean myself. I do like that kind of relaxing, just kind of turn your brain off kind of experience that it offers, but I hadn't played the originals, so I was not particularly attracted to this game because of that. Next up is a big one, at least for some of us here, and that's Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door remake, which came out later in May. If you haven't seen how we feel about this game, just go back and rewatch our live reaction where Daniel literally went to another dimension.
Broke my chair.
Yeah, he did.
No one will let me forget it.
So Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door was already a great game. And I think it just maintains that. It does make it better. I don't really have a reason to go back to the original, personally. I know it's not 60 FPS like the original is, but to be honest, it didn't really bother me that much. The 30 FPS that's there is stable, and at this point in the Switch life, that's all I can ask for.
Yeah, I don't see, and I'm somebody who's very nitpicky about frame rates. I don't really see the need for 60 FPS in a turn-based RPG. People will talk about button press timing and stuff like that. If you can't nail a button press in a perfectly rock solid 30 FPS, you're not going to nail it in 60 either. In fact, you have less of a chance of nailing it in a 60 FPS title. So, I think really frame timing and frame pacing is more important in a game like Paper Mario. than frame rate, as long as that frame rate is 30 or above. And Nintendo, made sure that it never dips. It literally never dips. And honestly, when we get further into this year and talk about another notable Mario RPG, you're really going to see what I mean. But yeah, I was happy with Thousand Year Door. It just takes a great game and brings it forward so it can be accessible to more people. And really, with a game like this, that's all you needed to do. I mean, there are improvements, but you could have just brought over the GameCube game, and I would have been happy.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things that you could have compared to this from the original. Like, of course, if I play the original one on GameCube and then I play this one, I'll be able to notice a frame difference between the two. But all in all, it doesn't really matter. Honestly, sometimes it just kind of fits the papery aesthetic even more when you think about it, especially considering previous titles of Paper Mario. He does kind of move like in a somewhat pseudo stop motion style, anyways. So
Yeah.
it didn't really bother me as much. Like, yeah, as you're saying, Steve, with the 30 FPS, action commands are easier now because they had to widen the amount of time that you have to actually hit the frames to get the commands right. And there's badges to augment that too, to like make it tighter, to make it wider. But otherwise, yeah, everything about this, I just really enjoyed it. There's a lot of stuff that they addressed from the original that made it a lot more seamless and streamlined. There's a lot of warp points just everywhere when you find them,
Yes.
which makes certain backtracking very convenient. Kind of questionable. Like, how does the pipe to Glitzville get to Glitzville when it's floating in the air? I choose not to question it. But yeah, overall, just a overall solid improvement to everything you could imagine. Like, if you want to have like the original music in the game, you can get it very early on, very easily. I do like the redone soundtrack. It sounds very lovely. We started to go more towards that big band style that we see more now in other Paper Mario games. But all in all, I think everyone should give this one a shot if they haven't before, because this is really one of the best Paper Mario games. For me, it is the best one that's ever been released. So
Yeah, and there's even a little bit of extra content in there for the people who are willing to go digging and find it, which I really enjoyed. One of them in particular closed the book on a long-lasting mystery for me. So yeah, that's a great game. Probably one of the best Nintendo released all year. Sorry, there is a fly flying in my face. Next up, coming in June, was Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. And Steve, I think you're the only person here who played it.
Really? Well, I put out a video on Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. And it was it was nice to have this because it was a transformative experience for me. Before this came out, I loathed Luigi's Mansion 2, and I think that was a pretty dogmatic view of that game because at the time we didn't have the benefit of having received a third entry in the series, right? So we had one, which to me is an all-time great Nintendo game. Luigi's Mansion 1 is just a really tightly paced, really well executed game that was underappreciated in its time, but I think the community has come around on the way they did with a lot of GameCube games. But Luigi's Mansion 2, just felt like they were taking the formula that worked and throwing it completely in the trash. And, I would still say that it is the weakest of the three Luigi's Mansion games. But going back to it with the benefit of with the benefit of knowing the direction the series is headed, it's perfectly fine in its own right. Like it's a fun, different take on the Luigi's Mansion franchise, and I just had a blast of a time with it. And I would recommend that anybody who hated it back when it first came out pick up HD and try it again, because you'd probably be surprised at how much more enjoyable it is without kind of this air of like, oh no, they're ruining Luigi's Mansion surrounding it.
yeah, this was a title that did something different, more level based, as would be in a traditional Mario game, whereas you had just the one singular mansion that you explored in the entire first title. I didn't play this one because I mean I experienced the original one on the 3DS, and I didn't really feel a need to go back and play it in HD this year, so I had to kind of just forego that one. But yeah, it's a title that we can now compare to two other titles in the Luigi's Mansion series, and I'm totally fine with this one doing its own thing. and it kind of helped to evolve the Luigi's Mansion into what we got in Luigi's Mansion 3. So there is some charm to it, of course. Like Luigi's obviously the more animated as the series goes on, and I always appreciate that for him. But yeah, overall, I think that this is something that we can really appreciate for what it is. I don't really know what else I could say about Luigi Mansion 2 HD, because it's just the game on it's just a 3DS game that's been up res, honestly. They didn't really add anything more to it other than just like adapting controls to the Switch, right?
They kept Scare Scraper, and we should all thank Next Level Games for Scare Scraper.
Yes.
Scare Scraper is awesome, and now we have 2 versions of it on Switch. The 1 and 2 and the 1 and 3. Yeah, I didn't get to this myself, but it is a game that I'd like to get at some point, just not for full price. But knowing Nintendo, that's probably going to be a difficult task. Moving on, in July, we got a kind of a surprise game, Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. And I really liked this game, personally.
Yeah.
What do you think, Steve?
NES, Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. What a mouthful. It turned out to be a lot more fun than I was expecting, because kind of the bite-sized nature of it. I got lucky enough to get to preview this, not too far from Daniel in San Francisco, actually, maybe like a couple weeks before it came out. And I was not sold at all on the preview, like before I flew out to play it. I was like, I'm hopping a plane to go play NES. Like I could do that at home. But once I played the game and I realized what they were really going for to kind of introduce a new generation of players to that kind of world of speedrunning, even, in the smallest bit, because obviously like actual speedrunners don't need this game. Like they can do this stuff without Nintendo telling them what to do, but also, they can do it with unrestrained creativity, which is something, Nintendo gives you a very on rails approach to speedrunning. And I had a ton of fun with this game. My best friend and I would like stay up trying to beat each other's best times on specific challenges. And I gotta admit, I got cooked. Like he literally like S+ ranked every single challenge in the game. And I was like only done with maybe Mario 2. So it's just, I'm not a speedrunner, but I had a lot of fun with this. And I still every now and then will just like, I'll see the collector's edition sitting on my shelf. Like it's back here somewhere. It's right there. It's right behind my couch cushion there. And when I see it, I'm like, I should pick that up and play it again. I even ended up buying like the NSO NES controllers, which I weirdly didn't own before then. So it's still a fun game to me. I just wish Nintendo would update it. Like give us more stuff to do in that game, because I think a lot of people tore through it pretty quick.
Yeah, there's not quite enough content there to keep you coming back. Once you've S+'d everything, all that you have left are the actual like the weekly championship leagues, and people are going to perfect this stuff, so there's not much intrigue there, I think. But the game did surprise me. I agree with you. I think the just sitting there with someone else and playing is probably the best way to play it. You can have up to 8 people just playing at the same time, and I found that to be really fun. This is a great party game. I wish they had built it that way a little bit more.
Yeah, at PAX, Daniel and I played it in like a group of 8. Like Nintendo were taking people through their booth, and one of the last stops on the tour was 8 people playing NES World Championships. And I was like, this is how they should have marketed this game, because that's how they did it in the preview as well. They took 8 of us and had us play against each other. And it was, that's definitely like the way to play this. Like at Christmas, I might just bust this out for my family and be like, let's race. Whoever loses takes a drink or something. 'Cause it'd be fun.
Yeah, that's probably a more ideal way to play it than how I did it. I was with 8 people. We were in one apartment studio, huddled around one PC monitor, playing 8-player NES championship. With we all had a tiny little Joy-Con just hovering over, just cooking in there because it was so small. We didn't have a window open, just so we can get a few recordings of that. But it was really fun, all things considered. We did a whole bunch of different challenges together, and that was like the most fun I've ever had playing NES Championship, because honestly, I play this game and I just wish it was NES Remix 3 or something. And unfortunately, it's not that. It didn't need to be. I guess they could do doing whatever they want with it, but as you said, there's no more updates. It just kind of is what it is. And once you reach that ceiling, there's not really much more to go off of from there, other than to just play it with friends. That could have been a good a pull to continue playing that, but I guess it's just going to be what it is now. But it's still a solid title regardless.
I think the ideal outcome for this game would have been NES Remix 3 with that 8-player mode as a prominent feature. Because I'm just sitting here thinking, playing NES Remix with a group in the exact same format as World Championships would be super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta wonder if that's just something that they experimented with this and might do in the future.
If they don't, well, you can have that one for free. Anyway, moving on, we've got Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club, released in August, a sequel to the Famicom Detective Club series. I have not finished this game, but the amount I've played, I really enjoyed. I think it's a significant step up from the remakes we got.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
Did you play the first two by any chance?
I've beaten Girl Who Stands Behind, and I want to say I'm like a third of the way through The Missing Heir.
Okay. Yeah, I got a good. The problem was, I got a good part of the way through The Girl That Stands Behind, but it wasn't on my Switch. It was on a Switch that belonged to somebody else that I am no longer with, and so they obviously kept that. And the game like never goes on sale. I would gladly buy it if I could get it just a little bit cheaper. Nintendo. I'm not asking for a lot here. But you could have had a sale of that before Emio came out, and you probably would have had a lot more people buying and playing that on the lead up. But I definitely want to get into the rest of the series. I love visual novels. I love playing that kind of style. And the fact that it's just something that reemerged from the past to get the last title I would expect it to get remade. And then beyond that, to get a sequel after those two, to have a trilogy here is incredible. And I know people have been going crazy over the story, over what happens in this game, and I want to be in that circle. So hopefully soon I'll be able to do that.
Yeah,
there
that's...
was a
Oh, go ahead.
there was one scene in Emio in particular where the protagonist is like on the side of the road without a ride home, and the scene plays out for like 30 to 40 minutes of you just standing there not knowing how to get home, and I was just laughing my ass off. It was surprisingly funny. It's like super mundane because there's like no music. You just hear the birds chirping and the other environmental sound effects. And there's just a dude standing on the side of the road next to a payphone that doesn't work with no way home. There was nothing like that in the first two games, and I really appreciated, despite how dark something like Emio is, how lighthearted it could also be at the same time.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm a big fan of what I've played of Emio so far. But what really has me interested is what you hinted at, and that's kind of the praise I've heard from media and specifically from our colleagues. You know, I trust a handful of people within the games industry to, like, you know, when they say something is really good, I feel the need to go play it and find out for myself. And one of those folks is Daniel Vuk in Australia. He runs, like, I think it's Vooks.net. And he gave this game a perfect score, like a 10 out of 10, and said it was one of the best Nintendo games he'd ever played. And that kind of perked my ears up. You know, like, I needed to finish this. And at some point I will. Like, I'm right now, as I'm sure you guys are as well, I'm playing through everything that has a legitimate shot at Game of the Year to try to have a more informed opinion overall by the end of the year. I'm like an inch away from beating Metaphor right now. But Emio is on that list specifically because of that review that I read. And also just John. Like, John was very effusive in his praise of this. And he said that in particular, the ending of this game just blew his mind completely. And I have to know what happens, because everyone I've heard that has praised this game says like the end of this game is something unlike anything you've ever seen from Nintendo. And I was like, damn, I have to find out what that is.
That's something that they even used in their own marketing, I remember. Like there was an interview up on Nintendo's YouTube channel, and one of the things that they mentioned was that the ending was going to be polarizing. And I'm like, when
Right.
they're coming out and saying that from the get-go, there must be something crazy going on.
Yeah, I have to know how this ends. I'm going to laugh if it's something crazy. They're like, and that's the origin story of Star Fox. Emio cut his legs off and went into space.
Oh,
Surprise
man.
ending.
I love it when there's so many like visual novels I played that have like just crazy, insane uh ending that kind of recontextualize everything that came before it. And I really want to know what a game like MEO, how they do it, and I hope to do that very soon.
There's nothing like a great visual novel, and one of my favorites is the Somnium Files, which just changes everything, and it all works, and you don't understand how they'd manage to pull that off, but it's so impressive. And then you think about it for 4 years since I played it.
Oh, Date.
I love Kaname Date. Moving on, in September, we got The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. This is probably Nintendo's most notable release in 2024, and certainly the one I think I look back on the most fondly.
I am both fond of and disappointed by Echoes of Wisdom. I have very mixed feelings on this game, because like you, Brandon, it's Zelda. I look forward to every Zelda game. I've got a Master Sword right behind me, and it's ironically not even the only one in my house. But I feel like I've reached a point with the Switch, broadly speaking, where I'm just kind of really tired of games releasing with major technical flaws. And Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, despite, I feel like it would have been a better Switch 2 game than a Switch 1 game. And, because it's really hard to be enamored and captivated by the creativity on display in this game. The sheer it's clear the developers were having fun with the Zelda franchise when making this game, and I love it for that. But when using those creative tools routinely makes the game, drop like a rock in frame rate, I'm just like, I could have waited. I could have waited another year and had this game on better hardware and not had these complaints about its technical performance. Because outside of those, if this game ran at even a smooth 30, I'd be so much happier with it.
Yeah, it feels like Nintendo wanted to have this out, as if they felt like they needed to have this out to have a major title to speak of. Because I don't know what the major title of the year would have been this year if had not it been Echoes of Wisdom. Mario and Luigi, perhaps? I don't know. But at the end of the day, like I think I enjoyed this more than most. It definitely is notable for being the first Zelda game you play as Zelda in a top-down perspective. That's officially owned by Nintendo. That's officially owned by Nintendo. There's just certain things about it here and there that I understand people have their criticisms about. For me and for many, I'm sure it's like just handling the managing things in the UI itself was terrible. Yeah, it's funny, I edited an image where it's like, hey, Nintendo, you could do this, where there's 3 separate rows of things instead. So like one row could be like your most used, the second row could be something else, like different categories. And I had posted that like maybe a few days beforehand, just showing like, oh, this is what you could do. And Nintendo sent me a big old DMCA saying, hey, you can't do that. And I'm just like, oh, okay. It's not even like a leaked image or anything. It's just me editing it. So I'm just like, are they going to have that in the game? Actually, they didn't. It's still just one massively long row. And there's another menu option where you can kind of scroll things. But they're both cumbersome in their own ways, and it kind of ruined part of the experience for a lot of people because there's just so many things to manage, especially when you're trying to be. It's just not very streamlined at the very end of the day.
It's so funny too because there was an interview and they talked about some of that, and they just kind of brushed it off. They're
Yeah.
like, well, if you could categorize this stuff, you would just go back to the stuff you always use. And I'm like, okay, I can see your point there, but that doesn't mean it needs to be a nightmare.
Right.
I'm pretty sure one of those interviews was that they said it was an intentional design choice to do that, so people can get a feel for all of the stuff that is within Zelda's disposal. And I'm like, no, this is not better. your your vision of this was not as what you projected it to be.
It's what I'd call a very engineering forward design instead of a user focused design, right? Like you built all these things, and so you want people to use all of them. So you make an intentionally cumbersome interface so that people get tired and go, all right, I'm going to use this enemy because he's closer than the one I want. But that's not really like it to me. That's not really friendly. I don't want to say good because I'm not a game designer. I'm not qualified to tell you what is and isn't good, but it's definitely not friendly to the player to have this design where, you have to scroll through like literally 100 different things to get to certain things. And that's just kind of a shame. Also, I could be misremembering, but don't they place them in the order you recently used them? So you're still more inclined to use the ones you use all the time.
There's a few different ways you can categorize them. That is one of them. So yeah, it's kind of
they defeated their own.
Yeah, it defeats their own purpose. So despite the frustrations with stuff like frame rate and the way that the echo sorting is handled, I think this is one of the coolest things they've ever done with a top-down 2D Zelda game.
Oh, 100%.
And I love the way they break conventions. Because they were doing that with 3D Zelda, so it was cool for them to try and apply some of that to 2D Zelda, and I'd like to see them keep trying that even after this one. I really liked Echoes of Wisdom. I know John and I especially are pretty hot on it, but yeah, it is showing a frustrating trend of Nintendo first party titles coming out and not running very well. However. That's not a problem with the next one. In October, we got Super Mario Party Jamboree, which, it's Mario Party. You expect it to run just fine. And guess what? It does.
Yeah, but it does, and I hate to be the negative Nancy on the panel today, but it does show another frustrating tendency of Nintendo's, and that is obtuse online play decisions. Like they have this big beautiful 21 player mode, and they're like, you and 7 of your friends can enjoy this together. Like, why? I understand most people are not going to get together a group of 21 people to play Mario Party, but why not give us the choice? You could have done it. You could have let us.
You can make a lobby of 99 people in F-Zero 99. You can get 99 people together to play that one. You can't get more than 8 in Mario Party. But there's different options for that. There's like Koopathon, which is the main one where you would have all these players in there. And I'm just like, it's kind of fine, whatever. I'm not going to spend most of my time in Koopathon anyways. I'm going to be playing the board games. I'm going to be playing with 3 different friends, playing that the majority of the time anyways. That's a minor thing for me. Especially when like the other mode that's like the Bowser Kaboom Squad is also max 8 players. So what it does accomplish, I think, is very good. We pretty much took this unfortunate lull of where is this series going to Super Mario Party, the first Mario Party on Switch, to Mario Party Superstars, which is pretty much the top 100 but made into a good game. And then we have Jamboree, which is like the mix of those two, which is having a lot of original content, some borrowed from other games, some mini games, some board games, and made into a very solid experience. One of the best Mario Party experience that we've had in a very long time. There's also, it has its spots like mini game variety is a bit stunted if you're not playing the full set with motion control. Not everybody wants to play motion controls, and so it takes one person to not have a Joy-Con, and everyone has to just not have those options there. But that's probably my major gripe with it, is that it just feels kind of repetitive as it goes on, and the pacing somehow just feels like it's getting slower. I don't know how they managed to do that, but
it's a nightmare.
Yeah,
like, their own estimations for how long a game will take are longer than they were in the previous one, and they're still wrong. They're not long enough.
I'll say this because I'm probably, of the three of us, the most casual Mario Party enjoyer. I love Jamboree. I think that but to be fair, I fire it up like maybe twice a month, but when I get a group together that want to play it, we'll have a great time with it, and I'll put it down and I won't think about it for another few weeks. And that's kind of how my relationship with Mario Party has been since the N64. And this has to be my favorite one. Just the different modes. I love the Koopathlon. I think it's really fun. But again, I don't play a whole lot of any of these. Like it's literally people come over and we're bored and we're thinking of what to do. I'm like, Mario Party. Let's all play Mario Party, and we have a few drinks and we curse at each other, and I lose invariably. Like I've never won Mario Party in my life. But I always have a good time, and this has to be, for me, the most enjoyable one in many, many years, if quite possibly ever.
This is Mario Party 9. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
The real
Mario
one.
Party 9 and 10 aren't real. This is Mario Party 9. It's great to finally come back to the traditional formula, but with a brand new entry. That's exactly what I wanted to happen, and that's what happened here. Though I do agree with Daniel that the MIDI game variety does leave a lot to be desired. It's really unfortunate because in Superstars you could go an entire 20-turn game and never have a single repeat. That's not going to happen in Jamboree, and it's really, really frustrating. So, we've been asking for DLC updates for the last couple Mario Parties in a row. It's yet to happen even one time, so I'm not going to expect it to happen here. But if they were to add anything, like 30 mini games, I think 30 more mini games you can play in the board game modes would probably fix it.
They advertise that this has the most mini games of any Mario Party, over 100, but that's only because they divide them between the Koopathlon, Bowser Kaboom Squad, the other like single player ones. And if the update is anything, if there is an update, just convert ones that you play in the Koopathlon to one you can just do with 4 players. That's totally doable.
Heck, just put some of the mini games from Superstars in there. I don't care. I just need more. But it is a great game. It's the best Mario Party game we've gotten in a very, very long time. Not counting something like Superstars, which is largely a remake, if you consider that. But moving on, we'll probably touch on this one briefly because it's not a game. It's software, and that's Nintendo Music. That came out in October. It made everyone really confused, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, Nintendo Music is an interesting choice. I still stand by the fact that I just don't know. It adds value to the existing NSO subscription. People rightfully pointed out to you and me, Brandon, that NSO itself is like $2 or $3 a month when you calculate the numbers if you're in an individual plan. So I don't really know how much you could charge for it as a separate app, because that's something we talked about.
99 cents.
99 cents a month would not be bad. But October was a baffling month for Nintendo, because we got this. We also got Alarmo, which again, I still have it. It's sitting on my bedside table. I have since stopped using it because once you add another person into your bed, it becomes useless. Like it just becomes a paperweight that screams Splatoon songs at you until you hit a button, which I don't know if you've ever been woken up to Splatoon going full tilt. It's traumatic. Like it's you jump out of bed and you're like, please stop screaming at me.
It's doing its job.
Does the job.
Yeah, I don't need an excited Woomy like right in my ear every morning. But yeah, it was Nintendo Music and Alarmo are very interesting releases. I like Nintendo Music. I like the idea of it, but honestly, I would be 10 times happier if they just released all of this on some service that has all my other music, like Spotify or Apple Music or something like that.
I remember I mentioned, I already talked a lot about Nintendo Music the last time I was on The Win, so I won't repeat myself too much, but I enjoy the service for what it is. It's something that we didn't have that is there. I mean, there's obviously other alternatives. Like Nintendo makes these apps that really doesn't feel like they're really contributing to a lot more than what we can already have access to. Like with their own NSO app, we just use Discord. With this app here with Nintendo Music, a lot of people would just listen to their playlists on YouTube anyways. So I like that the option is here. I have listened to this quite a bit, not just because I did, content on it before, but because I just enjoy Nintendo Music as it is. And it's fun to see what they add every week. We recently got Wave Race 64, which I didn't expect to see that one. It's just a little grab bag of what will come next. But at the end of the day, I enjoy the app as it is. There are some people that will definitely get some more use out of it than others for certain features, and others and some that cater more to them. But yeah, I'm just happy it's an option that we have here.
I have not opened it since it came out. That's where I'm at with Nintendo Music. But like I said originally, I don't think this was something that was really made for me. So if you're getting use out of it, that's great. Just it's not really my deal. That said, coming into November, we got Nintendo's last major release for 2024 in Mario and Luigi Brothership. And I still don't know how to feel about this game.
I'm extremely torn because Brothership, like when I look at that game being played and I'm like, this is everything I've ever asked for. This is a Nintendo game that takes the beautiful art that, they put out to promote these games and brings it to life. Like I've always wanted that. Visually, this is one of the most appealing, hands down, one of the most appealing Mario games I've ever seen, just because it so faithfully replicates that art style that I love. But gameplay is a very different story. I like the battle system well enough, but it is Nintendo games often get accused of being handholdy, and I don't really buy into the criticism very often, but this is one where it's extremely valid. Like Brothership, it goes beyond handholding to like walking you to where you need to be.
I don't even know so much if I think it's all that handholdy. I just don't think it shuts up. Like, it's not so much telling me where to go all the time, it's just over explaining simple things. Like, I don't need 7 back and forth pieces of dialogue during a story cutscene that doesn't like advance the plot in any way. This game does everything in its power to go as slow as possible, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I think I've felt a lot of people's thoughts and impressions on this when I was trying to I was like polling people on Blue Sky to see, what do you think of this game? What would you rate it? What do you like about it? What do you think could be improved upon? And I think through all of this, very divisive thoughts and feelings. It's just a game that doesn't really have its identity down pat right now. Obviously, partially because this is done by a development team that's not Alpha Dream. Only some people from Alpha Dream were working on this for this title, and so there are some things that just feel a little bit different than what we're used to. Like this is essentially a JRPG, but you only have 2 characters. Like the pace of which it goes is more akin to a traditional JRPG, but it's in a mold of Mario and Luigi that we're not used to so much. And so some of it feels a lot longer than it probably should be. And yet it's also molded in a way that it's very level designed in a Mario, particular Mario fashion, where you go from one island to one island to one island, and sometimes you come back to it to do other things. You have an ability that you can explore somewhere else with. And yeah, there's just a lot of aspects about it that kind of touch upon different aspects of not just the Mario series, but just other RPGs in general. And it hasn't really latched down to what it wants to be quite yet. And if we get another Mario and Luigi in this style, which I hope we do, I'm sure that one hopefully will kind of figure out what it wants to do with itself. Because I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that's just the feeling I got from everybody that was commenting on this game. Because there's like no one opinion that is really one that aligns with mine out there, because we all have different things that we like and dislike about it.
It doesn't necessarily do anything to evolve Mario and Luigi. It just kind of is a Mario and Luigi game, which on its own is fine.
Yeah.
But The last Mario and Luigi game I really loved was Dream Team, and that game was already too long. So to do that again and be worse than it was the last time, it's how did that happen?
Which is so unfortunate because in the past, when I imagined Mario and Luigi on consoles, this is pretty much exactly how I imagined it would look. It has that art style, and everyone's just so animated and just well, yeah, it just looks so good. The art style is exactly what I wanted to have from the series on a 3D environment on a console. So it's just kind of frustrating to see where it's
Yeah.
gone.
I can only hope that Mario and Luigi gets another shot after this, because I don't want it to just go dormant again after, Brothership. But they got to work some of this out. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is a game you can beat in like what, 15 hours, maybe 20.
Mm-hmm. Not that
This
long.
game,
Yeah.
this game's like anywhere from 35 to 40. I can't play Mario and Luigi for that long.
That is
I'm sorry.
That's a long time for when you have the series for this long, and when you compare it to the other titles, that is a much larger playtime than we're used to.
Yeah, it doesn't earn that. It doesn't do enough interesting to be as long as it is, and that's a shame. I would probably have finished Brothership at this point if it wasn't dragging its feet so much. So I'm so sad. I was really looking forward to this game, and I don't think I'm gonna finish it. At least not anytime soon. I might finish it on Switch too when, if some of those load times can be shortened, because getting in and out of battle is already a pain in the butt.
It would be really nice if they took a page out of what All Possible Futures has done this week for the Plucky Squire and introduced a streamlined mode where it was for more experienced players and took some of the explainer bits out of the game. Like, oh, we know you know how to look for items, or we know you know how to navigate a map. So we're just not going to tell you those things and let you figure it out.
Still, the one thing that they need to change, and if they don't, I'm going to do something. I don't know what the something is yet, but if they don't let me select Luigi's actions in battle with the B button, I'm going to be really mad. I'm already really mad.
I have messed up so many action commands because of that. That one simple aspect. Just please. At least give us the options. The only thing you have under options is Rumble, and that's a crime.
Yeah, it's such a weird change. It's been this way for the whole series, the whole length of the series. And yet sometimes Luigi will be by himself in story bits, and it'll go back to him needing to press the B button to do stuff. And I'm like, why?
So inconsistent.
Okay. That's enough me ranting about the B button in Mario and Luigi. That was the last major release for Nintendo in 2024. And now that we're here in December, just a few weeks out from 2025, I'm looking back on this year and thinking, well, that was weird.
It's an interesting year. I was critical of a lot of stuff that came up in this list, but taken in context, this is an incredibly strong year for Nintendo. Like if you look back to the last year of the Wii U, I mean, we know for certain this is the last full year that the Switch is on the market, or at least that the Switch is Nintendo's like primary console they're supporting. You go back and you look at the last year of the Wii U, even the Wii, the GameCube, the N64, those were incredibly sparse years. You're lucky if you got 2 first-party games in those years. Nintendo released something almost every month, throughout presumably the final full year of the Switch, being on the market. And that's remarkable. Like it's easy to complain about games having performance issues on 10-year-old hardware at this point. But it's worth noting that Nintendo is really swinging for the fences even now. And that to me, as somebody who lived through many just kind of years where you had a Nintendo console that had no choice but to collect dust, at least we have stuff. At least Nintendo is putting out new things, and they may not always, be a grand slam, but I will take these over just Nintendo going quiet for, 7 months at a time.
Yeah, I would, and I'd be remiss to mention too that, the Nintendo Switch Online service obviously got updates throughout the year. They're all going to be old games, right? So it's not like a huge deal, but there were some pretty interesting ones like F-Zero Climax is a game I find myself continuing to go back to because that didn't release here. So it's cool that that's there now. And then F-Zero 99 got a big update, which I know you were excited about, Daniel.
Yeah, we got a bunch of Satellaview contents. There was other like there was this was it like a Star Festival, something like that. It was also there as well earlier this year. After they said that they weren't going to update the games anymore, the title itself anymore. Um, Honestly, even though Nintendo didn't really shine as much with the games themselves this year, they had a lot going on that wasn't game related. That I think a lot of people are just going to kind of forget to mention. Like they opened a museum. The Nintendo Museum is open this year. They expanded the theme park with the Donkey Kong over in Japan. Obviously, we mentioned that they have new software now. They have the Nintendo Music. They have Alarmo. They're getting more media branding stuff out there. They announced that the Mario Brothers movie 2 will be coming in 2026 earlier this year. Just a lot. They're really expanding. Like this is stuff that I would never expect to see from Nintendo like a decade or two ago, but they're really just trying to push harder to have that branding out there. And they're doing that really hard right now, especially so that, people know what Nintendo is more than ever when the Switch 2 is finally released and announced at least. So I don't know. It's all a weird marketing plan that I'll never understand the timing for, but they are moving. Just next year will probably be a big one.
I did fail to mention one more first party Nintendo release. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp got its complete offline edition that you
Oh
can buy for
yeah,
$10.
You
That
know,
also came out.
that's
I'm
true.
very interested to try that. I'm a big Animal Crossing fan. I reviewed New Horizons and it was a really fun time for me. I would really like to give that more of a fair shake because I had written it off. Just free to play mobile is not usually my thing. But as a complete game, that seems interesting. Full disclosure, I've not gone hands on with it at all. Uh, but it's definitely one that I'm going to try before the next episode.
That one really has me wondering how they're going to handle, because was one day Fire Emblem Heroes is also going to go off service, and it's been around just a little bit longer than Animal Crossing has Pocket Camp. So I'm assuming it's going to also take the similar routes whenever that happens. It could happen as early as next year because that game's been around for a long time. It's still making a lot of money though, so probably still got some life in it yet. But I haven't tried Pocket Camp paid edition, so I'll have to. I do want to give that a shot as well, but it's at the same time it's like, well, I did invest some time early on, and I probably wouldn't do it to any extent to that, even if I did pay for it this time. So yeah.
That's Nintendo in 2024. It was kind of a low key year. Nintendo did release some good games, some maybe less good ones as well, but we all know that's an anticipation for Nintendo's next platform. And I agree with you, Steve. It's a better year than like the Wii U's last year. That's not something we can overlook. But it does kind of feel like we're just kind of spinning our wheels, and that's a little bit of a frustrating position to be in. Like I'm thinking back from the rest of the year, and I think our last actual like Nintendo Direct that had video games in it was in August, and that was a partner direct and an indie showcase. So Nintendo's just kind of been keeping quiet for the most part. We know there's stuff coming. It's just it feels like a lull.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. We're definitely, but it's an expected lull, right? Like I think that anybody right now is expecting that Nintendo's full focus is on launching their next platform. And of course that means that they're going to be kind of in a dormant phase. Like we're waiting for, the slumbering giant to awaken here and to give us, reasons to be hype. Like, and I'll say this, as even in a year where Nintendo was far less exciting than normal. I did my PlayStation wrap up, which I talked about on our PlayStation podcast, and I played almost 800 hours of PlayStation this year. That is well above double what I played the year before. So it's, it's telling. Like, I've talked to a lot of my friends who have also told me like their Switch is kind of not getting a whole lot of mileage anymore. I think there's just kind of a general consensus that we're all waiting for that next big thing, but there's nothing like a Nintendo console reveal. Like, as somebody who loves all three major platforms, I have an Xbox, I have multiple PS5s, and I have, my Switch. I I don't get nearly as excited for those other two as I do for when Nintendo is finally going to take the wraps off of something they've been working on. It's just kind of it makes me feel like a kid again in all the right ways. So I understand, and I'm more than happy to wait. I don't love the lack of communication from Nintendo, but I at least understand it given the current circumstances.
Yeah, we're still also feeling the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's probably playing into this a lot. Um, and we probably will for a few more years yet. Um, but it'll be interesting to see what happens when that reveal finally takes place. But we'll talk more about that next week when we look into Nintendo's 2025. There are a few things there that we know about, and we can probably make some assumptions from that point. But until then, Steve, why don't you let people know how they can become part of the Winner's Circle?
Sure. If you'd like to join our Winner's Circle and get access to this episode and all episodes of The Win in the future a day early, you can go over to patreon.com/gvgaming, where for as little as $5, you can join our Winner's Circle. That gives you exclusive access, not just to our Discord, which is patrons only, but the Winner's Circle channel, where the Win community gets together. We talk about each episode. We let you suggest mailbag items for future episodes. It's a great community. Again, patreon.com/gvgaming if you want to check that out. If not, we're happy to have you here.
All right. Until next week, guys, keep the games good and the vibes greater. Bye.
Bye.
Till we meet again.